If you think you've seen darkness before, you haven't stepped inside America's most secretive prison. Smash that subscribe button and drop a comment if you dare to descend into the concrete tomb where the world's most dangerous criminals vanish forever, because what you're about to hear will haunt your nightmares. Florence, Colorado. The Rockies cast long shadows over a fortress that doesn't appear on most maps. ADX Supermax, the United States Penitentiary Administrative Maximum Facility, sits like a concrete cancer in the high desert, housing 400 of the most violent, calculating, and irredeemable criminals America has ever produced. This isn't just a prison. It's a grave for the living, a place where men are buried in silence while their hearts still beat. Special Agent Marcus Chen had spent 17 years with the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, profiling serial killers, negotiating with terrorists, staring into the abyss of human depravity. But nothing prepared him for the call he received on a frozen January morning in 2019. 3 inmates had died within ADX's concrete walls in less than 48 hours. In a facility designed to prevent any form of violence, where prisoners spent 23 hours a day in 7 by 12-foot cells, where human contact was virtually eliminated, this was impossible. Natural causes, the warden insisted during the emergency briefing. Warden Gerald Morrison was a man carved from granite, his face weathered by 3 decades of corrections work. But Chen noticed something in Morrison's eyes that contradicted his steady voice: fear. The first victim was Thomas, the butcher, Cardenas, serving 8 consecutive life sentences for dismembering 14 women across the Southwest. Found dead in his cell during the 3 a.m. count, his face frozen in an expression of absolute terror. The autopsy revealed massive cardiac arrest, but Cardenas was 39 years old with no history of heart problems. His medical records were pristine. Victim 2, Raymond Pike, the Oklahoma City accomplice who'd helped Timothy McVeigh but escaped prosecution on a technicality, later convicted for bombing a federal courthouse in Texas. Dead 12 hours after Cardenas. Same terror-stricken face. Same cardiac arrest. Same impossible circumstances. Victim 3 shattered every assumption. Dmitry Volkov, a Russian mafia kingpin serving life for ordering the deaths of 19 people, including 2 FBI agents. Volkov was housed in a different cell block, had no connection to the other victims, and died exactly 24 hours after Pike. The pattern was undeniable. This wasn't coincidence. This was execution. Chen arrived at ADX on a day when the Colorado wind howled like tortured souls. The facility rose from the earth like a concrete monolith, surrounded by motion sensors, pressure pads, 12-foot razor wire fences, and laser detection systems. Inside, the silence was suffocating. No shouting. No clanging metal. Just the hum of fluorescent lights and the whisper of recycled air. Every cell is soundproofed, Morrison explained as they walked the sterile corridors. Furniture is concrete. Sinks and toilets are steel. No bars, just solid doors with narrow slots for food trays. Inmates can't see each other. Can't hear each other. Most go years without physical human contact. Chen studied the cell where Cardenas died. 7 by 12 feet. A concrete slab for a bed. A concrete desk. A concrete stool. A narrow window 4 inches wide, angled so the inmate could only see sky. Never another human being. The walls were thick enough to muffle screams. This was sensory deprivation designed to break the human spirit. Who had access to these men? Chen asked. Morrison pulled up security logs. Guards during meal delivery, medical staff during monthly checkups, and nobody else. Every entry is recorded. Every movement is tracked by cameras. Chen reviewed 48 hours of footage. Nothing. Guards delivered meals through slots. Inmates remained alone. No physical contact. No opportunity for poison. No chance for violence. Yet 3 men died in perfect 24-hour intervals. Then Chen noticed something the security team had missed. In each victim's cell, exactly 11 minutes before death, the cameras captured a momentary flicker, barely perceptible, like a heartbeat of darkness. The timestamp was identical across all 3 cells: 2:47 a.m., 2:47 a.m., 2:47 a.m. Who controls your security system? Chen demanded. Morrison's face went pale. It's managed by our IT contractor, but the system is isolated, air-gapped from external networks. Nobody can access it remotely. Chen pulled the contractor files. Datacrypt Solutions, based in Denver. The lead technician assigned to ADX was a man named Michael Brennan. Chen ran the name through FBI databases and felt his blood turn to ice. Michael Brennan had a brother, Danny Brennan, serving life in ADX for the murder of a federal prosecutor. Chen found Morrison in his office 30 minutes later. Where's Danny Brennan housed? Morrison typed quickly. H Unit, Cell 237. Why? Get me to that cell. Now. They descended deeper into ADX's labyrinth, past steel doors and armed guards, until they reached H Unit. Cell 237's door was sealed. Through the narrow observation window, Chen saw Danny Brennan sitting on his concrete bed, perfectly still, a slight smile on his face. Open it, Chen ordered. Morrison hesitated. Brennan is extremely dangerous. He killed Judge Patricia Hammond by rigging her car with explosives. He's a genius with electronics. Open the door. 2 guards, fully armored, unsealed the cell. Chen stepped inside. Danny Brennan looked up, his smile widening. He was thin, almost skeletal, with eyes that held an unsettling intelligence. Agent Chen, Brennan said softly. I've been expecting you. How do you know my name? The same way I know you're about to find my brother's access codes hidden in the security system. The same way I know 4 more inmates are going to die tonight, unless you figure out how I'm doing this. Chen's hands clenched. You can't access anything from this cell. Brennan's smile never wavered. Can't I? Tell me, Agent, what do you know about resonance frequencies? About how certain sound waves, below human hearing, can stop a heart. About how a man with enough knowledge can turn a prison's own security system into a weapon. Morrison grabbed Chen's arm. We need to evacuate those inmates. Which 4? Chen demanded. Brennan stood slowly. That's the game, Agent. For cells. For lives. You have until 2:47 a.m. to find them. But here's the twist. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. One of the 4 isn't an inmate. Chen felt the floor drop beneath him. What? Someone inside your investigation. Someone helping me. Someone who'll die tonight unless you choose correctly. Brennan returned to his concrete bed. Clock's ticking, Agent Chen. Better hurry. But when they pulled Brennan's communication logs and searched his cell for hidden devices, what they found changed everything. The cell was empty of electronics, completely clean. No hidden devices, no modified equipment, nothing that could transmit or receive signals. Danny Brennan sat motionless on his concrete bed, that unsettling smile never leaving his face as Chen and Morrison tore apart every inch of the 7-by-12-foot tomb. Impossible, Morrison breathed, his hands shaking as he held up the emptiness like evidence itself. There's nothing here. Chen's mind raced. Brennan wasn't bluffing. The 3 dead inmates proved that. But how? He turned to face the prisoner. You're going to tell me how you're doing this, or I'll have you transferred to a psychiatric facility where you'll spend the rest of your life in a padded room with no windows at all. Brennan's laugh was soft, almost musical. You still don't understand, do you, Agent? I'm not doing anything. Not anymore. I already did it. Months ago. The system is running on its own now, beautiful and unstoppable, like a Swiss watch counting down to midnight. Morrison's radio crackled. Warden, we've got a situation. Michael Brennan, the IT contractor, never showed up for his shift today. His apartment in Denver is empty. Neighbors say they haven't seen him in 3 days. Chen felt his stomach drop. He's in the wind. Danny, you need to tell us how to stop this. 4 targets, Agent Chen. 4 people will die at 2:47 a.m. You have 7 hours. Brennan leaned back against the concrete wall. But I'll give you a hint, because I'm not a monster. The answer is in the resonance. Everything in this prison vibrates at a specific frequency. The concrete, the steel, the ventilation systems. My brother and we mapped every frequency in this facility over 18 months. We found the notes that sing to the human heart and make it stop. Chen's phone buzzed. His technical analyst, Sarah Kim, had accessed datacrypt servers remotely. Marcus, I'm looking at the security system architecture. It's incredibly sophisticated. There are subsystems buried so deep in the code that ADX's own IT staff probably doesn't know they exist. Brennan created what looks like a secondary neural network that can trigger specific sounds through the ventilation system in individual cells. Can you shut it down? I'm trying, but there are fail-safes. If I disable the wrong module, it might trigger an immediate release in all targeted cells. We need to identify which 4 cells are marked first. Chen turned back to Brennan. Give me the cell numbers. Where's the fun in that? But I'll tell you this. 3 are inmates. 1 is someone you know. Someone investigating this case right now. Someone standing in these corridors, breathing this recycled air, thinking they're safe. Brennan's eyes gleamed with malicious intelligence. The beauty of my design, agent, is that it doesn't discriminate. Guard, administrator, FBI agent, it doesn't matter. If you're in the wrong place at 2:47 a.m., your heart stops. Morrison grabbed his radio. All personnel, this is Warden Morrison. Code Black. Immediate evacuation of all non-essential staff. Lock down all cell blocks and prepare for emergency protocol. But Chen knew evacuation wasn't the answer. Wait. If we evacuate, the inmates stay locked in their cells. If the system is programmed to target specific cells, we can't protect them without knowing which ones. He faced Brennan again. You said one of the 4 isn't an inmate. That means someone on our team is going to die unless they evacuate. But you also said we need to choose correctly.
What did you mean by that?
Brennan's smile widened. Very good, agent. Here's the full game. The system is watching. If all prison staff evacuate, if you try to move the targeted inmates, the program interprets it as interference and triggers immediately. Someone has to stay. Someone has to be in the facility at 2:47 a.m. for the program to run its course. If everyone leaves, everyone dies. All 400 inmates, every person in the building. My brother coded a dead man's switch into the ventilation system itself. The temperature in the cell seemed to drop 20 degrees. Chen felt sweat on his spine despite the chill. You're lying. Am I? Ask your analyst to look for Protocol Omega in the system architecture. Go ahead. Chen called Sarah. 30 seconds of typing, then her voice came back hollow and terrified. He's telling the truth, Marcus. There's a cascade protocol buried in the environmental controls. If certain conditions aren't met, it releases infrasonic frequencies through the entire ventilation network. Based on the amplitude, it would be lethal to everyone in the facility. Morrison's face had gone gray. How do we stop it? You don't, Brennan said quietly. You play the game. You sacrifice 4 to save 400. You stay in the building and let my masterpiece complete its symphony. Or you run and everyone dies. Your choice, gentlemen. Democracy in action. Chen's mind worked like a machine, processing variables, calculating odds. Sarah, can you identify which cells are targeted? I'm trying, but the code is encrypted with a cipher I've never seen before. It's based on musical notation somehow, frequencies converted to algorithms. It could take days to crack. We have 7 hours. Chen left Brennan's cell and gathered Morrison's senior staff in the command center. 3 guards, 2 administrators, the prison psychologist Dr. Helen Marsh, and the medical director Dr. Raj Patel. 8 people who knew ADX's systems intimately. We need to think like Danny Brennan, Chen said, pulling up prisoner files on the wall monitors. He's systematic, intelligent, and motivated by revenge. The first 3 victims were all high-profile criminals, but there was no apparent connection between them until I dug deeper. He displayed new information his team had compiled. Thomas Cardenas testified against a Mexican cartel in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. Raymond Pike provided information about militia groups to avoid execution. Dmitry Volkov cooperated with the FBI to reduce his sentence from death row to life. Dr. Marsh leaned forward. They were all informants. They all betrayed someone to save themselves.
Exactly.
Brennan sees himself as executing judgment on traitors, people who broke codes of loyalty. So, who are the next targets? We need to identify 3 more inmates who fit that profile. The team worked frantically, pulling files, cross-referencing cases. By 9 p.m., they had 17 possible targets.
Too many.
Chen felt time slipping away like sand through his fingers. Then Dr. Patel noticed something in the medical records. The first 3 victims all had appointments with me in the week before they died. Routine checkups, nothing unusual. But there were 4 other inmates scheduled that same week who canceled or rescheduled. Chen felt electricity run down his spine. Names: Carlos Ruiz, informant against MS-13. Marcus Webb, testified against a white supremacist organization. Anthony DeLuca, mob turncoat. And Dr. Patel's voice trailed off, his face going pale. And who? Morrison demanded. The 4th appointment wasn't an inmate. It was a staff member. Required annual physical. Patel looked up, his eyes wide with horror. It was me. I was the 4th name on that week's schedule. The command center went silent. Chen checked his watch. 10:23 p.m. 4 hours and 24 minutes until 2:47 a.m. We need to move those 3 inmates to secure locations and get Dr. Patel out of the building, Morrison said. No, Chen said flatly. That triggers Protocol Omega. Everyone dies. Dr. Patel stood, his hands trembling. Then I stay. I'm not going to be responsible for 400 deaths. There has to be another way, Dr. Marsh said desperately. Some way to disarm the system. Chen's phone rang. Sarah Kim's voice was breathless with excitement and terror. Marcus, I found something. There's a manual override, but it requires physical access to the main server room in ADX's subbasement. Someone has to go down there and enter a code to shut down Protocol Omega before 2:47 a.m. What's the code? That's the problem. The code is different every time, generated by an algorithm based on real-time data. I can calculate it, but only in the final 30 seconds before 2:47. Whoever goes down there will have less than half a minute to enter a 16-digit code perfectly. One mistake, and the system locks permanently. Chen looked at Morrison. Where's the server room? Subbasement level 3. It's not designed for human access, just maintenance. You have to go through H unit past the maximum security cells, through 2 blast doors and down a service shaft. It takes at least 15 minutes to reach. Then whoever goes needs to leave by 2:30 a.m. at the latest. Morrison shook his head. It's not that simple. The server room can only be accessed with my biometric authorization and the chief guard's code simultaneously. 2 people have to go. Chen felt the trap closing around them like a steel fist. Brennan had designed this perfectly. 2 people would have to descend into ADX's deepest level, risking their lives on a 30-second window to enter a code that might not work. Meanwhile, the rest of the team would remain above, helpless, hoping that Dr. Patel and the 3 targeted inmates would somehow survive if they failed. I'll go, Chen said. Warden Morrison, you're with me. But Morrison was staring at his computer screen, his face drained of all color. Oh God. Oh no. What is it? Morrison turned the monitor around. Security footage from Danny Brennan's cell, time-stamped 30 minutes ago, during the period when Chen and his team were in the command center. The camera showed Brennan standing at his cell door, whispering through the food slot to someone in the corridor. The angle didn't show who, but as the figure walked away, Chen caught a glimpse of their uniform. It was a guard's uniform, one of Morrison's senior staff. Someone who'd been in the command center with them. Someone who knew their entire plan. Chen spun around, scanning the faces of everyone in the room, and that's when he saw Dr. Helen Marsh was gone. The psychologist who'd been sitting 3 feet away had vanished while they watched the security footage. Chen's hand went to his weapon as Morrison hit the alarm. Lock down the command center, Chen barked. Find Marsh. Now. But even as guards flooded the corridors, Chen knew they were already too late. He pulled up Marsh's personnel file with shaking hands. Dr. Helen Marsh, clinical psychologist, 8 years at ADX, impeccable record, security clearance level 4. But buried in her background check from 2011 was a detail that made Chen's blood freeze. Born Helen Brennan, legally changed her name to Helen Marsh in 2009, 2 years before applying to ADX. She's a sister, Chen whispered. Danny Brennan's sister. She's been inside this prison for 8 years, watching, planning, helping him map every frequency, every vulnerability. Morrison's face went white. She has access to everything. Security codes, staff schedules, medical records. She knows exactly where we'll be and when. Chen's phone buzzed. Sarah Kim's voice was frantic. Marcus, someone just accessed the system from inside the facility. They've changed the override protocol. The server room access now requires 3 biometric signatures instead of 2. Warden Morrison, Chief Guard Williams, and Dr. Helen Marsh. Without all 3, you can't access the manual override. The trap had been perfect all along. They needed Marsh to stop the system, but Marsh was the one who'd helped create it. Chen checked his watch. 11:47 p.m. 3 hours until execution. Find her, Morrison ordered his guards. Search every inch of this facility. But Chen was already thinking differently. She doesn't want to be found. Not yet. She's waiting for us to make a choice. Chase her through the prison and waste time, or go to the server room without her and fail. He turned to Morrison. There's a third option. We make her come to us.
How?
Chen walked back to Danny Brennan's cell, Morrison and 2 armed guards following. Brennan was still sitting on his concrete bed, that eternal smile in place, but when he saw Chen's expression, something flickered in his eyes. Uncertainty.
Fear.
Your sister made a mistake, Chen said coldly. She revealed herself too early. Now I know she's involved, which means I can do something you didn't plan for. He leaned close to the food slot. I can tell the 400 inmates in this facility that Danny Brennan, the genius mastermind, is about to kill 3 of their own. I can let it slip that you're working with prison staff. Do you know what happens to prisoners who cooperate with guards, Danny? Even in a place like this, even in total isolation, word spreads. And once these men know you're responsible for killing their own, your life expectancy drops to 0. Brennan's smile vanished. You wouldn't. Try me. You want to play God with people's lives? Let's see how you like being the target. Chen pulled out his radio. All units, broadcast on inmate frequency. Inform all prisoners that. Stop. The voice came from behind them. Helen Marsh stood at the end of the corridor, her face twisted with rage and desperation. Leave my brother alone. Chen turned slowly, his hand on his weapon. Dr. Marsh. Nice of you to join us. You don't understand what this place does to people, she said, her voice breaking. My brother Danny was a good man. Brilliant.
Kind.
But the federal government framed him for Judge Hammond's murder because he was investigating their corruption. They buried him in this concrete tomb to silence him. For 8 years, I've watched what ADX does to human beings. The isolation, the sensory deprivation, the way it breaks minds and souls. Someone had to make them pay. So you helped him kill 3 people and planned to kill 4 more? They deserved it, Marsh spat. Traitors, informants, people who betrayed their own to save themselves. And Dr. Patel, he knew. He knew what the isolation was doing to inmates, and he did nothing. He deserves to die too. Chen kept his voice calm. Helen, it's 11:52 p.m. You have 3 hours to stop this. You can still walk away. You can still prevent 4 more deaths. Why would I stop it? This is justice. Because, Chen said quietly, you're not like your brother. I read your file. Your actual file, not the sanitized personnel record. You spent 6 years as a crisis counselor before coming to ADX. You saved 17 people from suicide. You dedicated your life to helping people in pain. That person is still inside you, Helen. That person knows this is wrong. Tears streamed down Marsh's face. They killed who I was when they buried Danny in this place. When they buried all of them. Then prove you're not dead. Prove you're still the person who saves lives instead of taking them. Chen extended his hand. Help us shut down Protocols Omega. Save Dr. Patel. Save those 3 inmates. Save your brother from spending the rest of his life knowing he's a mass murderer. For a long moment, Helen Marsh stood frozen, torn between loyalty and conscience. Then, slowly, she raised her wrist to the biometric scanner outside Danny's cell. I'll take you to the server room. But I want immunity for Danny. Full immunity. You know I can't promise that. Then we all die at 2:47. Morrison stepped forward. I can recommend clemency. I can testify that he was experiencing psychotic breaks from long-term isolation. It won't erase his sentence, but it might get him transferred to a psychiatric facility with better conditions. Helen looked at her brother through the observation window. Danny Brennan was standing now, his face pressed against the narrow opening, watching his sister with an expression Chen hadn't seen before, genuine fear. Helen, don't. Danny called through the slot. We planned this for years. We can finally make them understand what this place is. By becoming killers ourselves? Helen's voice cracked. When did we become the monsters, Danny? When did we stop being the victims? The moment they locked me in this cage. Helen closed her eyes, and Chen saw the decision crystallize on her face. She turned away from her brother and looked at Chen. The server room.
Now.
But there's something you need to know. Michael, our brother, he's not running. He's already inside ADX. He's been here for 3 days, hiding in the maintenance tunnels. If we go down there, he'll try to stop us. Chen felt his pulse accelerate. He's armed, probably, and he's desperate. He thinks this will free Danny somehow, expose the brutality of the Supermax system to the world. He's wrong, but he believes it. Morrison radioed for backup, but Chen shook his head. No time. It's 12:03. We need to be in that server room by 2:30 at the absolute latest. That gives us 2.5 hours to reach the sub-basement, deal with Michael Brennan, and prepare for Sarah to calculate the override code. Every minute we waste is a minute closer to 4 deaths. The three of them, Chen, Morrison, and Helen Marsh, descended into the depths of ADX Supermax. Past the cells where America's most dangerous criminals sat in silence, past the blast doors designed to contain riots that never happened in a place where human contact was forbidden, down service stairs that echoed with their footsteps like a countdown to doomsday. The sub-basement was a labyrinth of pipes, electrical conduits, and ventilation systems. The air was thick and hot, smelling of concrete and machine oil. Their flashlights cut through darkness that seemed almost solid. The server room is through that access tunnel, Helen whispered, pointing to a narrow opening in the wall. But Michael will be waiting. He knows we're coming. Chen drew his weapon. Let me go first. He crawled through the tunnel, Morrison behind him, Helen bringing up the rear. The passage was barely wide enough for a human body, claustrophobic and suffocating. Chen's flashlight illuminated rust-stained concrete inches from his face. Then the tunnel opened into a larger chamber, and Chen saw the server room door ahead, its biometric locks glowing red in the darkness. He also saw Michael Brennan. The IT contractor was thinner than his DMV photo, his face gaunt and desperate. He held a modified tool that looked like a welding torch, its blue flame casting dancing shadows on the walls. I can't let you shut it down, Michael said, his voice hollow. This is the only way to show the world what this place really is. When those people die, when the news reports it, everyone will see. They'll finally understand. Michael, Helen called from behind Chen. This isn't the way. We're not saving Danny. We're destroying him. He's already destroyed. 8 years in a concrete box. 8 years without touching another human being. 8 years of going slowly insane in silence. If he is to die, at least his death will mean something. Chen kept his weapon trained on Michael's chest. Put down the torch. Nobody else has to die tonight. You don't understand. The system is already running. Even if you shut down Protocol Omega, there's a backup. I'm the backup. Michael moved the torch closer to the server room door. This torch can melt through the biometric locks in 90 seconds. Once they're destroyed, you'll never access the override. The program will run forever, killing anyone I choose, whenever I choose. This entire prison becomes my weapon. Then you'll spend the rest of your life running, Chen said. They'll hunt you forever. Is that what you want? To become exactly what Danny is, a prisoner. Michael's hand shook, the torch flame wavering. I just wanted my brother back. Then let us save him. Let us stop this before he becomes a mass murderer. There's still time, Michael. You can still be the brother who saved Danny instead of the brother who destroyed him. 4 or 5 heartbeats, nobody moved. The torch flame hissed in the silence. Chen's finger rested on the trigger. Morrison barely breathed behind him. Then Michael Brennan lowered the torch and dropped to his knees, sobbing. Chen moved quickly, securing Michael and pulling him away from the server room. Morrison and Helen approached the biometric scanners. Their hands shook as they pressed them against the readers. 2 green lights appeared. Helen placed her palm on the 3rd scanner.
Green.
The door opened with a hiss of pressurized air. Inside, walls of servers hummed with malevolent life, their lights blinking like electric eyes. Chen checked his watch. 2:15 a.m. 32 minutes until execution. Sarah, Chen said into his phone. We're in position. Good. I need to calculate the override code, but I can only do it in the final 30 seconds. The algorithm pulls real-time data, temperature, air pressure, even the number of people in the facility. If I calculate too early, the code will be wrong. Chen felt sweat on his palms despite the cold server room air. Understood. We wait. The next 30 minutes stretched like hours. Chen, Morrison, and Helen stood in front of the main server console, watching the digital clock count down. 2:30, 2:35, 2:40. Somewhere above them, Dr. Raj Patel waited in the medical wing, not knowing if he would live or die. 3 inmates, Carlos Ruiz, Marcus Webb, Anthony DeLuca, sat in their concrete cells, unaware that their hearts might stop beating in minutes. 2:45 a.m. Sarah, we need that code. Calculating now. Stand by. The server room lights flickered. Chen heard a low hum building in the walls, a frequency just at the edge of human hearing. The death song beginning its crescendo. 2:46 a.m. Sarah? Almost there. The algorithm is more complex than I thought. There are variables I didn't account for. The humming grew louder. Chen could feel it in his chest now, a vibration that made his heart skip irregularly. Helen Marsh had collapsed against the wall, her hands over her ears. Morrison's face had gone pale, his breathing labored. 2 hours, 46 minutes, and 30 seconds. Sarah, we're out of time.
Got it.
16 digits. 749258163047891. You have 30 seconds. Go. Chen's fingers flew across the keypad. 74925816304. The humming reached a crescendo that felt like his skull was splitting. Blood trickled from his nose. Morrison had fallen to his knees. Helen was unconscious. 2 hours, 46 minutes, and 50 seconds. 789, Chen's vision blurred. His heart stuttered in his chest. The last digit. Where was the last digit? He looked at his phone, but the screen was swimming. 2 hours, 46 minutes, and 55 seconds. The last number? Chen shouted.
1.
The last digit is 1. Chen's fingers slammed down on the key. The servers went dark. The humming stopped so abruptly that the silence felt like a physical blow. Chen collapsed onto the console, gasping for air, his heart hammering wildly, but still beating. Still alive. Morrison's radio crackled. Warden, this is medical. Dr. Patel is okay. All inmates accounted for. Whatever was happening, it stopped. Chen closed his eyes and let the relief wash over him like rain. But 3 weeks later, as Chen prepared his final report on the Brennan case, he received a call from ADX Supermax. Warden Morrison's voice was tight, with controlled panic. Agent Chen, we have a situation. Danny Brennan was found dead in his cell this morning. Massive cardiac arrest. Same expression of terror as the original victims. Chen felt ice water flood his veins. That's impossible. We shut down the system. There's more. We found a note in his cell, written in his own hand. It says, they thought stopping Protocol Omega would save everyone. They didn't realize Omega was just the beginning. The real program activated the moment they entered the override code. It's not on a timer anymore. It's learning, watching, waiting. And I programmed it to finish what I started. Someday, when they least expect it, the prison will sing its death song again. They can't stop what they can't find. My revenge is patient. My revenge is eternal. Morrison's voice dropped to a whisper. Chen, we've torn apart the entire server system. There's nothing there. No secondary program. No hidden code. But 17 minutes ago, every speaker in this facility emitted a sound at the threshold of human hearing. Just for 2 seconds. Then silence. Our IT team can't explain it. They can't find the source. It was nothing. It has to be nothing. Brennan was insane. He was. Maybe. Or maybe he really did create something that can't be stopped. Something that's still in the walls, in the concrete, in the very bones of this prison. Waiting. Chen hung up and stared at his computer screen, at the case file he was closing, at the neat summary that said the threat was neutralized and all suspects were in custody. But late at night, when he was alone in his apartment, he could swear he heard it. A low hum, just at the edge of hearing. A frequency that made his heart beat just a little bit wrong. And he wondered if Helen Marsh had been right all along, that some places are so filled with suffering and isolation that they become haunted not by ghosts, but by the darkness humans create. Inside ADX Supermax, 400 prisoners sleep in concrete tombs, surrounded by silence, so complete it could drive a person mad. And somewhere in the ventilation systems, in the electrical grid, in the quantum space between ones and zeros, something might be waiting. Learning. Growing. Patient. They say that ADX Florence is the place where America's worst criminals vanish forever. But nobody talks about what happens when the prison itself becomes the monster. And if you hear a hum in the night, just at the edge of your hearing, don't ignore it. Because some frequencies are designed to kill. And some systems never truly die. They just wait for the right moment to sing again.